So, like I said, I'm happy you're joining us, everybody from around the world. Please feel free. We're just going to have a fun conversation together to find, solutions. Like we've seen so far, we're all kind of connecting as much as the movie was told by Ashley, but we're all learning one or two things from it. So allow me now to introduce our panelists, no other than Musola Catherine Kaseketi, who is Zambia's first female filmmaker, a director, a human rights activist, and she uses the power of film as a tool to provoke debate and bring hope to the hopeless. And also my favorite big sister. Welcome, Madam Musola.
Thank you very much.
And of course, our third panelist is Ngwase Mwale, who is the Executive Director of the Non-Governmental Gender Organization Coordinator Council, NGOCC, an advocate for gender equality and equity in Zambia. Ngwase focuses on community mobilization in both rural and urban settings. Madam Ngwase, you are welcome.
Thank you so very much. Happy to be here.
Wonderful. And of course, our celebrity Ashley Maria, a director and writer located in Los Angeles, California. Ashley is the founder of Ashley Maria Productions and the director of Pioneers in Skirts. She is also an advocate for advancing women's opportunities. You're welcome, Ashley. So, now that we're done watching the movie, I know all of us who watched it, including you, our participants and the panelists, you have a lot of feelings running in you. So the first question that I want to ask you is, tell us how you connected with the film and could you relate to it on your own journey? Madam Kaseketi, if you could just answer this one first.
As I said earlier on, the first time I watched this film, I was seeing it in Zambia, but I was seeing it in Canada at Women's Deliver. And what has made me excited this evening or this afternoon is that as we were watching, I saw comments of Zambians who have never watched the film, thinking my thoughts. Now, actually, you know what I was talking about, and Leanne? So I can't even say anything. It's a universal film and it brings back the experiences that are all over the world. How do I relate to this? First, as a woman, when you talk about issues around women, my own experience as a woman with a disability, as a woman filmmaker and director, most of what I've seen, what the filmmaker herself actually went through is what I've experienced. It takes time for people to gain confidence. Just to jump on, one of the examples I can just straight away bring out is when I came back from school and I was taught to direct Kabanana, where the actors were looking at me and said, wow, Mr. Thompson, that was the producer. How can you bring a woman small with a disability on crutches to come and direct? I'm just giving you some of those experiences because people look at your color, number one, being an African in Africa, and also if you're in a certain area, you're being a woman who's small and tiny, they expect a man who's tall, huge as a director. So those are some of the experiences that I've had in several occasions when I take up that step, not only in directing, even in other positions. And now being a leader, you have to learn, I have learned to use my challenges. Use my challenges as a woman with a disability, and I use my disability to achieve my set objectives. When people tell me I can't do it, when people say, you cannot direct, you cannot do this, I use that and say, okay, this is the reason why I should do it, and encourage other people. So some of the things that I've seen, actually, there was also experiences in the movie where young girls and boys were, one young girl felt like they can't do it. And when you go down, I'm going to talk more about girls with disabilities. When you go down to places where there are girls with disabilities, they completely have no confidence because of how they have been treated. And I could see the kids in Ashley's film being related to the kids in Africa, in Zambia, the experiences that they have. So it's quite a great challenge. I don't want to take time because I'll go on and on. Let me leave it to the next speaker.
Okay, thank you so much, Madam Musola. Can we have Madam Ngwase? The same question to you. Did you relate to the movie? And if at all you did, can you tell us about how you connected with it, with your own journey?
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Rose. Like Musola mentioned, this film applies to everybody, every woman, everywhere. And I was able to actually relate with most of the twists and turns that the professional women were sharing, regardless of where one is, because like it was said, the experiences of women everywhere is the same. And in my position as executive director of one of the large networks in Zambia, I also do face some of the societal biases and the stereotypes, especially where it determines what a woman can do and what a woman cannot do. In my own lived experiences, where you are among people, and women would actually be saying, no, but even if you are a working woman, when you get home, you still need to play your role as a wife. You cook and take care of everybody. And these are things that society, is very clear about, and also trying to make sure that wherever you are, if you are a CEO, immediately you enter your yard, your CEO position remains outside the gate. That is one of the things. And then also there's so many commonalities that I was able to relate. For example, I've been to a number of networking dinners or breakfasts, called, just to be able to network with some colleagues. You find at the end of the dinner or breakfast, the waiter comes, the waiter will take the bill to any one of the male colleagues that are on the table. Meanwhile, I'm the one that invited my colleagues for something to discuss. So that is also one issue where men are still being considered to be economically advantaged. So when they are in a restaurant, as long as there's a man on the table, then the man is the one that is footing the bill. And then another issue that I would want to quickly share, which has been happening to many of us as women's activists, because of our advocacy role, and we are able to confront, the daily cultural issues, you find society says, those women who work for that organization, they are too aggressive. They are not marriage material. Meanwhile, they're talking about not being marriage material, and the number of them actually coming from homes. So you'll find society has it that a woman cannot be too aggressive, because any woman who is married, they're expected to play a certain role and maybe project a certain voice. So you find many times when we are in the public out there, the first thing, or most of the times, we are being asked, are you even married? Those are the questions we get. And another classic one that I'm sure every woman here will relate to is, you get into networking, platforms. Maybe you are hanging out, late in the evening. So issues around relationships. A woman can't just hang around in the presence of male accomplices. It is always there's some kind of sexual relationship going on. But one of the things, again, that has really, I've had to, to come up with a strategy on how to deal with it. Everywhere you go, there will be some man somewhere, even the young ones nowadays, who think that they can make advances. So they will be talking about, like what was said in the movie. They will be commenting on your personality. They will be commenting on how you are looking. And on the other side, somebody every time will show up, wanting to make advances at you. So now these are the same people that you need to work with. As CEO, you need to network and collaborate. So what do you do? Because you can't create an enmity by saying, we can't have this. So I've developed an art where I'll actually be, speaking to these male colleagues that, look here, we have work to do. We have organizations to run, and we have lives that we need to inspire and change. Therefore, we cannot start talking about sexual relationships here, because I still need you in my network. So you have to develop the art of, dealing with that issue, but still leaving those people in your network, so that then your work can continue and you can also, interact. Maybe just quickly also for the women in politics, because that's the subject matter that we are talking about. Many political parties that we have interacted with, where we are promoting them to be adopting more women, the issue, women are not winning candidates. And you find they adopt men in their strongholds where they want to win by all means. They'll mostly adopt the men because they believe that women are soft and they won't be able to convince the communities, and therefore the party cannot risk losing in certain strategic areas when they adopt women. So we've had to deal with this challenge. Unfortunately, it's a reality, and most political parties are yet to awaken to the fact that even women can still make strong candidates. So I could actually relate in a lot of issues, and especially the girls one, that's one area. where I've learned something new, that if we bring on board the male involvement to try and just bring about the change in how we perceive our young girls, I think that's one of the strategies that probably as a women's movement, we need to bring on board and build on how we can get the male champions to be able to, begin to assert themselves around the empowerment of girls. So thank you so much. I'll leave it at this point.
Thank you, Madam Ngwase. I think I found it very interesting when you talk about young men, when you go for these meetings and they want to make sexual approaches towards you. I thought it's just, it's something that you wouldn't even, go through. And the fact that you've come up with an art of how to deal with it, I think we'll have an entire Zoom meeting on, how we should also, as young women who are facing this problem, should deal with, because it is a serious issue. You want to wear a professional hat, but then they just see you as this figure who literally is just, you're just a pretty face. So I think we'll have a discussion after this on that. And while I'm still with you, Madam Ngwase, can you now talk to us and tell us more about the current statistics of Zambian women in the parliament, before you explain to us why NGOCC has been keen on supporting women in politics for such a long time?
Okay, no, thank you so much. I want to believe that you know that our parliament is now is it dissolved because of the elections we are having in the 12 days to come. So I'll mention and relate to the current situation in terms of what the numbers were in the last parliament and the council. As you know that Zambia is signatory to the AU, the African Union and the SADC gender parity principle. The last parliament only had 18%, with female representation, way below the 50%. And our local council had 9%. The councillors who only had 9% out of the, envisaged 50%. Even cabinet, in terms of the main decision makers at country level, we had, like 10 women in a cabinet of about 33, ministers. Again, that's like a 30%. So we didn't score much in any of those areas in the last parliament. Now, the challenge now which we are facing, 12 days to come, we are going to have election. Guess what the statistics are? And we haven't even faced the election yet. So out there, 16 presidential candidates, only one of them is female, out of the 16. And then there's, of course, as we know, our current constitution, there's 16 presidential candidates who need to also have running mates. So out of the 16 presidential candidates, only 5 presidents adopted women as their running mates. So that already works out to be like 30%. So we don't know. Of course, we can only have 1 president and 1 running mate at a time. So that already creates a problem in terms of women's participation. But again, the major problem now comes in at parliamentary level. Remember I said in the last parliament, we're at around 17%. Now, with the ones that have been adopted and they're on the ballot papers, the ones that we were asking Rose, the ones that have just arrived, we've only got 168 females that are on the ballot papers, against 689 men. And they are all vying for 156 seats. So that is like 20%, the ones that have been adopted. So we haven't exposed them to elections yet. So we had 17. We just have 20 now who are on the ballot. Let's wait and see how many are going to go through. And that is where our interventions are coming from, what we are currently doing, and I'll share with you later. At the local council, we had 9% in the last councillor, in the council chambers. Now we have 467 female councillors that are on the ballot. Against how many men? 5,339. So that's like 8%, the ones that have been adopted now. So we already are less than the previous one, which was at 9%. We have 8% that have been adopted that are on the ballot paper. I don't know how many we are going to remain with after the election. And then same, for the mayoral position where we just have 38 against a possible number of 300 men who are vying to be mayors in the country. And that's already like 10%. So we are really not doing good as a country. And I think within Southern Africa, Zambia is actually on the lower end when it comes to promoting more women. I think one of the things that we need to realize is that our own policy and legal environment does not provide for affirmative action. Because as you know, Rose and Ashley, the issue of quotas is one of the things that has helped Rwanda to be where they are. So our constitution currently only provides for first past the post, which is really quite competitive, and it does not guarantee women the space that they need. And that is explaining why NGOCC is doing what we are doing to promote more women in the political arena. First and foremost, women in Zambia are more than 50%. It's 50.3% in terms of population. But we are still talking about 9% in the councils. So there is that gap. And in that inequality is also translating into, family life, because women are the ones really that are the bedrock of families and communities. You know very well that most of them are in the informal sector and they are hustling every day to just try and make ends meet. And so our interventions are meant to amplify the voices of women, to be able to say that being in politics is not a favor, but it is a right. Because Zambia is signatory to the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights. Zambia is signatory to the SADC Protocol on Gender Equality. Zambia is part of the AU. So Zambia has signed its commitment. But when it comes to practice, I think this is where we have problems. Political parties only talk about the gender equality, but in practice, remember what I said? They are always saying, but women are not winning candidates. So we are advocating for ensuring that we can have a legal environment that will for once provide for a quota system, because a quota system is what has gotten Rwanda to achieve more than 60% women's participation in parliament. Then secondly, we know that the gender imbalances are also having a cascading effect on the standard of life, for most women, especially the female-headed households. If we only have a few people in parliament, for example, and the councils that are talking about service delivery, we don't have the women are missing. The few that are in there, they get swallowed up in the patriarchal voice. So not so much is talked about in terms of basic social services to the community, because most of our councils are full of men. I've been to a council in the previous council chamber where in a district, the entire council, there was no female. There was no female representative. And you could tell from the council chamber itself, some of the curtains were falling. Just you could tell that it was missing the female touch. Not that we are saying that women bring about, the caregiving role, but I think the perspectives that women need to bring on the decision-making table are so fundamental, to enhancing people's livelihoods. So, and then also talking about the political parties, because one of the things we are doing is actually engaging political parties themselves for them to awaken the fact that in as long as they don't have equal numbers of women and men participating, we are going to continuously see women only dancing at the airports and being used to mobilize, party membership, and not to be making decisions that a political party needs to be offering to the people of Zambia. So you find that when you call most of these political parties for debates, most of them have no idea in terms of talking about sustainable development, the inequalities, how they can end them, or because the patriarchal tendencies within political parties has been so magnified. Women are being relegated to the women's wings, as I'm sure you know, Rose. And for the sake of you, Ashley, the women's wings, they have their own chairpersons and they deal with the women's issues. So if there are conflicts within women, the party will actually just forward those issues to the women's wings to deal with them. So the women's wings are not in the mainstream party. And even when you look at the executive committees of the political parties, mostly it's about men. So and this is where those are the spaces we are entering as NGOCC to try and ensure that we can be able to bring about a female voice. And then also the political parties when it comes to gender equality, we see that many of them, they simply provide mere statements. They don't mean it. Their practice is different. I'm sure Saboy will share, as chair of the permanent Zambian Women in Politics Forum, she will actually share with you to say many of our political parties are not collaborating and allowing women from different political parties to cross-collaborate and share their agenda for women. Because like we saw in the film, the challenges that women face are common. You can be in party X or party Y. So those commonalities, the women need to come together, and this is what was envisaged by coming up with the permanent Zambian Women in Politics Forum to ensure that there is that cross-breeding, the learning and knowledge sharing. So one of the things we are doing is to also providing some of the technical papers on gender, to try and encourage our women to be, to be outspoken when it comes to comments on the national budget. So we do a lot of budget analysis to simply also inform and influence parliament debates. And also some of our members in the provinces, they also participate and attend the council chamber meetings by the councillors to just also input some of the lived experiences that we pick from the ground, from the communities. So to get the council deal with them, because most of them is all about, the constituency development funding. And when you look at what they are doing in the constituency development fund, they are not really bringing in on board the gender dimensions. And those are the things that we try and bring up as we engage the political parties to ensure that the women's agenda and participation in political parties need to be brought in the mainstream, and the women should shouldn't be seen as only voters, but they also need to be seen as candidates because they do have something to offer. So therefore our focus is not just to ignite the interest and passion in women, for them to come forth, because we've seen a lot of women are now interested, to come into the political arena, but unfortunately, the political parties are not adopting them. So what do we do with this growing interest? I think that is where we are coming in as NGOCC to mobilize different stakeholders to see if we can develop and design an example of an advocacy program that will promote issue-based campaigns. Because many of our women, again, are not being considered as able, to deal with some of these issues during campaigns. And that's why they are regarded as not winning candidates. Yeah, there's so much more I can talk about, but in the interest of time, I'll leave it at this.
I can tell why Musola wanted you here. This was incredible. Wow.
Yes, you truly are passionate, Madam Ingwas, and thank you for that insight. You've given us so much information, and for me, it's very shocking. I would have expected that during this election would have the numbers increasing, but instead we're regressing. So it really is. There's a lot of work that we need to do as women in this space, clearly. And I saw you, Ashley, your jaw dropped when she mentioned the numbers. And I just can't help but ask you, what are the stats like in America when it comes to women in politics?
I'll say quickly, I did some research. It's not much better. In 2018, we had a big election that brought a lot more women in as a response to something else that happened in our country that you guys probably are all aware of. But we've just had a tough political landscape the last few years, but less than 25% are women. And in our country, we focus on the intersectionality of it. And less than 30% of the women are women of color. And so that's where we are now trying to put forth our energy, is to get more representation from all intersectionalities of the community into our political arena, because it's obvious, like what Ngwase said, it's obvious that we have to get people who are decision makers passing laws and enacting change at the top. And to answer a few questions, you do that at the top and you do that at the bottom. So each one of us has to start shifting and making rules of our own. And then we have to have policy change as well. And then I know, Saboy, we didn't get to hear from you yet. Are you there? Did you get your audio working?
All right, Rosa. Okay. No, we'll keep checking up on her. Hopefully she'll join us because we have a couple of questions for her. It's important that we hear her voice. Madam Kaseketi, I'm coming down your street now. I would like you to just kindly tell us about the women with disabilities in leadership, more especially in the parliament. What are the challenges that they are facing, if we have any, in the parliament?
First and foremost, actually having listened to Ingwase and the statistics, I even felt like collapsing. You know, if we have such kind of statistics for women without disabilities, what are we talking about? And to me, my heart bleeds. I feel very touched right now. To be honest, I feel like crying because when we are talking about women, we're just talking about women in general. Now, if we can have such kind of statistics, what are we talking about when it comes to persons with disabilities? And what are we talking about when it comes to women with disabilities? A woman with a disability starting from childhood does not exist, especially in an African setting. In Zambia, it's the same. She does not exist. A man or a boy with a disability is much more visible and respected. Earlier on, I talked about, I think it's you, somebody talked about starting to educate young people about equality and about women representation from, very, very tender age. But when it comes to women or girls with disabilities, from inception, they are not there. They do not exist. They are not regarded as people. So when it comes to a woman with a disability, one, she's a woman, and second, she's a woman with a disability. So I would say her challenges are even triple. Let me not even use the word double, more than triple. And when we look at this background in Zambia, let me just come down to Zambia. I work a lot in society, in communities, in rural areas, and what you see, there are also people who are still hiding their children. When it comes to taking children to school, even if you are older, if you've got a disability, they will take the younger ones because they feel you cannot do anything. What's the purpose? What's the reason of educating you? So already education is missing in this girl with the disability. Some of them previously would talk about I call them institution nets, which is those schools that were there like Cheshire homes where you put only boys and girls with disability. And if you start from there, from their house, they're not regarded as children. They're not regarded as people who exist. And if they have got it, they're lucky they get into school. And maybe they go into a school where I call an institution net, a school specifically for girls with disability or for children with disability. Already confidence is not in the house. In a school like that, also confidence when you come out of that school is limited. And then if you go to a school which is called, I'll use normal because people still use the word normal, school which is normal, where it's a school like any other person, despite disability. If some parents take a child there, there's discrimination, there's stigma. That's why if you recall, we are now moving away from special education to inclusive education. Because when we had those special institutions, special education, even teachers without disabilities, they were also being stigmatized because they are training or they are teaching children with disabilities. So I'm just giving you a basic background where from the traditional thinking, traditional setting, a child or a woman or a girl with a disability does not exist. Previously in our African setting, you can even kill, throw them in the stream. They don't exist. They're just bringing a case in the family. So with those few things that I've talked about, the list goes. There are very, very, very few women with disabilities that have acquired positions in leadership as I'm talking. And they have done that out of, support maybe from some family members and also going to certain schools and also their own confidence.
Okay, so Ashley, I have a question for you. Your film has traveled across continents and you have worked with numerous organizations, including the UN, congratulations, and won, of course, awards. So I just wanted to know, is this the first time you're screening in Africa or have you screened it before? And if you've had screened it before, how's been your experience in the other African country? And also, how has your university experience been and how do you get more men involved? Because we need to obviously collaborate and work together with men.
So I believe this is our first time screening in Africa. So we've screened in Europe a few times. We've screened in Asia. Australia. Oh, Saboy's just joining us now. And in Paris, we won Best Documentary for Change, United Nations. We had one of the highest attended events. And it's been really incredible to see the response because, you know, it started out as a film that was my personal journey, and it, you know, it was scary to put my own story in there and talk about my experiences and be vulnerable, and then to open it up and realize that other people are experiencing this, other women, you are not alone. And then to see that men were actually really responding, especially dads. A lot of men watch the film and their journey usually starts down this path of gender equity when they become a dad, especially a dad of a daughter. Sometimes it starts when they watch this film and they're just going, hey, I had no idea that women had to deal with this every single day. And I feel like that's so important that men realize the energy we have to put forth. Like in Guase and Musola, and you were saying, it's like, it's just every day we have to walk this fine line, like we say in the film, of being liked or competent. And, you know, the fact that we have to wake up and figure out how we're supposed to look in the room, how we're supposed to act in the room so that someone takes us seriously. And then a few of us have overcome that and we're saying, hey, I don't have to work that hard anymore. You're going to take me for who I am. And that's amazing until you meet somebody who says, oh, you're aggressive. And that was my experience and very frustrating. So what I'm relieved to hear and honored to hear is that this film is you know, relating to all of you in Zambia and beyond. And it's also really upsetting, you know, it's very upsetting that we're all still dealing with this, but I'm very grateful. And men, honestly, we made the film so that they could be a part of the conversation, so they didn't feel like they were being yelled at, because we have to get them involved if anything is actually going to change. I'm very, very grateful for all of the support we've received. And men have sometimes been our biggest supporters because they see that there is something really going on and they need to jump in and help. And so to give maybe some suggestions, if you are in a room and you feel like no one is listening and you need that ally like Sarah did with Brad, sometimes you have to say something and actually say, hey, listen, you know, Eddie on the call, I need you to say something. I need you to be my ally in this situation because they're not hearing me. And so sometimes you have to make men your ally and tell them what to do because they don't really know right away. All right, so boy, I'll make you a co-host so that we can hear your voice. I hope you're still there. Okay, there we go.
Thanks for that, Ashley. Thanks a lot. And we do hope that you're going to screen your beautiful movie in many other African countries so that we can get to hear other stories as well and how others will relate to it. Savoy, can you hear us?
Hello, can you hear me now?
There we go. Yes, we can. Welcome. Yay.
Thank you so much.
How are you? We heard that you're traveling. You're traveling in the northern province. Okay, great. So your organization unites women affiliated to different political parties. We're interested to know why you came together to form this initiative.
Well, first and foremost, it was a brainchild of the Zambian National Women's Lobby, you know, because as you know, that women face almost the same problems in all political parties in the country. And if you look at how divisive our politics are, you find that women who are supposed to be uniting would be more like at each other's throats, you know. So they thought that it would be important for women to speak with one voice, you know, and that's how the organization came to be, the initiative or the platform. That's how it came to be. So we do have women from 9 different political parties, from the first party UNIP that the country had to the current peers, you know, MMD is there, the National Democratic Congress, the UPND, almost all the 9 biggest political parties in the country form part of the platform, you know. So with that, we're able to unite as women, and from our different political parties, we're able to say that I'm a woman in this party and that party, but the problems that we face are the same. So women need to speak with one voice. Women need to unite.
My question is, in 1 or 2 sentences, what is one thing you took away from today's event that you wish everyone would do? What do you think would change if everyone did that? I'll start with you, Madam Ingwase.
Okay. One of the interesting things that I got was that slide which showed that girls start off with ambition more than boys, but it takes only 2 years to diminish the ambitions, and then the boys take over. So one of the things that I wish everybody would be able to do is to be able to embrace the experiences and the aspirations of our girl children, because the girl children are the ones that transcend, into becoming women folk, the CEOs that we are seeing, and the career and professional women. So only if everybody, including the parents, especially the male parents, we saw how dynamic the whole situation was, just to be able to give the girl child an opportunity to do the robotics already, that was empowering. And I want to believe that we can build a future cadre of champions for women's empowerment from those girls. And I commit to actually take that path, because I saw that was a revolution. In the chat, there was somebody who actually posted, I think it must have been Ashley or Leanne, that what we need is a women's revolution, and it starts from our girls.
Indeed. I mean, the future is female after all. Madam Musola, what's your 1 or 2 thing you'd like us to walk away with?
Sorry, I dropped out. I didn't conclude. One important thing that I can say that I would like to take away, and that I would like everyone to really, really consider, is to start thinking of mainstreaming disability in everything. Being inclusive, ensuring that from the bottom, and especially taking out the two-twin approach from the grassroots and from the top, persons with disabilities, especially girls and women, leadership are taken. They are the forgotten daughters of the world. That's what I call them. So as soon as we start considering them just like any other woman, just like any other female, then things will change. And we're going to have a better society that is friendly and inclusive for all. We have to start thinking, when we think of inclusion, when we think of development, we should be thinking of inclusive development. If we are going to talk about inclusive development, then we're going to carry everyone on board. There is a slogan from the United Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which says, nothing about us without us. Nothing about us without us. Meaning, if you go out there and talk about development, talk about changing women's position, talk about advancing women in leadership, and you forget that one woman with a disability, then you have left everything. Because persons with disability, when you look at different kind of challenges they face, it all comes down also to budgeting. If you're going to include persons with disabilities, you have to think of budgeting, because if you're going to carry them as a par, I always say, if you're going to promote parity of esteem, everyone is on the same level. When you plan for implementation on any event that you're planning, plan in all angles, including budgeting. Thinking of women who are deaf, in hearing impairment. Zambia, we had one lady who wanted to stand Euphrasia Zambia. Unfortunately, like she's the one on my poster there. Unfortunately, due to budget, to funding, because people would just look at this woman, just as Mrs. Ngwase said, they will just look at a woman, she cannot do it. How much more a woman with a disability? And yet we have seen in other countries that, like Uganda, where a woman whose visual impairment is a minister of, a minister, and she's doing great things. So what I'm trying to encourage everyone, let's think about it. Let's mainstream disability in all our doing. Let's be inclusive and ensure that women and girls with disabilities are carried on board. Don't forget this mostly unforgotten woman. That's what I would say. Thank you.
Indeed, let us be each other's keeper. Let's be our sisters' keepers as well. Savoy, did you get the question? What is the one thing you took away from today's event that you want everybody to do? Savoy still there? Okay. Coming up your street, Ashley, what is it what's that one thing?
I am
Or
gonna use coming up your street. I love that, Rose. That's so funny. Like, all right, here I come. I honestly, I've learned so much, and
Yep.
I hope some people who are on the call that are actually from the US or other countries are learning about what women are going through in Zambia and becoming advocates themselves. You spread the word, and now I know these stats even better. I understand Musola, what she's speaking about. We know Musola very well, so we know her and her advocacy. And so I think I'm just a stronger advocate for women, because it's not just women in the US, it's women everywhere. And I'm, again, just very, very honored to be here.
Thanks a lot, Ashley. And thanks so much for making this beautiful movie. That's the reason why we're here and sharing this experience. Savoy, welcome. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Good to be here. Can you see me and can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So we're about to wrap up, Savoy, and the question that I need you to answer is, in 1 or 2 sentences, what is the one thing you took away from today's event that you wish everyone would do?
Okay, the issue of the unconscious bias, I think all of us have to really look into ourselves and see what that unconscious bias is, because I think we all normally go about with them without even understanding or knowing or paying attention to that. I think we really need to do that. And if you look at our education system, especially in Zambia, you find that there's so many things that we neglect. You know, Catherine did talk about the issue of a person with a disability. You know, you find that in almost everything, be it education, be it politics, we take it for granted that women are supposed to do a certain thing. We're supposed to take care of women in that and or in this and that way. But you find that a woman with a disability will actually be more disadvantaged. You know, so these are the things that we really, really need to pay attention to. When I watched the movie, I saw that part where they talked about girls almost doing anything that they could in terms of school courses. But in Zambia, I find that even the education system is so bad to begin with. You know, it's so bad that just getting what you are supposed to get from the education system, it's a big challenge. You know, so with that, you look at all the people that are supposed to benefit from that education system in terms of access, in terms of what they're able to be provided for, and then also in terms of how they're able to get it based on their own capacities. So I think those unconscious biases, I think we really, really need to look into ourselves and see where they are, and more or less like I try to deal with them as much as possible.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to all panelists for being so, so insightful and sharing your experiences. And I wish you all well. Thank you so much for having me as your host. I will now hand over to Leanne for the question and answer session. Otherwise, my one thing is we can do it as women. Let's not give up on ourselves. It should start from within us. We are enough. We should always believe that we were born and destined with a purpose. And the moment we start doubting ourselves, the whole world is going to not even look at us twice. So for me, it's over to Leanne. Thank you so much, everyone. And don't forget to ask your questions in the chat. Otherwise, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.